So here's a simple application we're going to work on throughout this section. On the top, we have a navigation bar with two links, followers and posts. The followers page is what we had as an exercise in the section about consuming HTTP services. So note the URL in the browser's address bar, that is /followers. When we click on a follower, we go to a different URL, that is profile, / and here we have two parameters. The first one is the username and the second one is the user ID. And after that, we have a query string. So we have a question mark with one query string parameter, which is foo. So you're going to learn how to implement routes with multiple parameters and query strings in this section. Now we also have another link on our navigation bar, that is posts, which takes us to our posts page. And note that the URL is /posts. So the first step to implement this navigation is to configure our routes. Now back in our project, I'm going to go to app module and configure our routes. Now if you want to code along with me, download the zip file I have attached to this lecture. Then run npm install to install all the node packages, and then ng serve. Okay? All right, now let's go to app.module. So the first thing I want you to note here is that in the declarations array, you're going to see a few new components. So we've got navbar component, which is a very simple bootstrap navigation component. Let me show you. So navbar.html. Very simple markup that I copied from Bootstrap website. So on this navigation bar, we have two links, followers and posts. Now back in app module, the other components here are home component, GitHub profile component, and not found component. These are really basic components. There is no code, there is no markup. I simply generated these with Angular CLI for the purpose of this section. Now, one more thing I want you to pay attention to is that here we have an import statement to import the router module from Angular/router. So we have imported our router module. Now we're ready to define our routes. So let's go to the imports array right here. We're going to call router module dot for route. For route is a static method defined in the router module class, and we use this to define the route routes for our application. Now, as our application grows, we may want to break that application into smaller, more manageable modules. Then in each module, we're going to have a set of routes for that particular area of the application. Then instead of using for route, we're going to use for child. You're going to see this later in the course. So for now, don't worry about it. So back to for route. Here we pass an array of routes. Each route is an object with two properties. One is path, and the other is component. With this, we're telling Angular router that whenever the browser address changes to this path, display this component. So here I'm going to add the first route for our home page. So the component should be home component. And note that here we don't have a leading slash. So none of our routes start with a slash. And an empty path represents the home page or the default route. Now, let's add a comma here and duplicate this. The second route is for our followers page. So followers, and the component is followers, GitHub followers component. Let's duplicate this again. Now, when we click on a follower, we want to see their profile. So here for the third route, the path should be something like this, profile. Now here we want to add a parameter. So slash, and to add a parameter, we use colon. And then we add the name of the parameter. So username. So in this path, we have a parameter called username that will be placed dynamically at runtime. You're going to see this later in this section. Now the component should be GitHub profile component. Okay? Now we can reformat this code. It's cleaner, easier to the eyes. All right, this is much better. Now two more routes. So let me duplicate this last route. I'm going to change the path to posts and the component to posts component. Now, if the user navigates to a different URL that is not a valid route, we want to display a typical not found page. So let's duplicate this one more time. Now for the path, I'm going to use 2 asterisks. This represents a wildcard, and this basically catches any URLs in the browser address bar. So here I'm going to change the component to not found component. Now the order of these routes is important. So if I put this last route at the beginning of our routes array, this pattern, this wildcard, is going to catch any routes, and we're only going to see the not found page. As another example, let's change the path for this route to followers/username. So now with this configuration, when we navigate to followers/anything, the path in the first route here will match the URL, and as a result, GitHub followers component will be displayed. In other words, with this configuration, we will not be able to look at the profile of a given follower. So we need to put the more specific routes on the top. So I'm going to move this on top of the followers route. So cut from here and paste it here. So now the first route is more specific. And if you have a URL with this pattern, this route will be active and GitHub profile component will be displayed. So this is how we define routes. Next, we're going to look at router outlet.